I thought the golden ticket would set me free. Instead, it became my death sentence. These were the words Lena Miller whispered to herself, a chilling mantra repeated on the morning she set in motion a mechanic's hand to sever the lifeblood of her husband's car. Lena, a woman on the precipice of 40, had endured 15 years of marriage, a union that had slowly, imperceptibly suffocated the vibrant spirit she once possessed. And now she was about to become a millionaire. But more ominously, she was about to become a killer. The air in Rosewood, Georgia hung heavy on that May morning, precisely the 10th of May, 2023. What began with the mundane ritual of breakfast would spiral into a chain of events that would change everything, irrevocably. Yet the true horror, the ultimate betrayal, would fester for 2 agonizing months before its deadly bloom. 2 months of clandestine planning, of insidious plotting, a gradual, horrifying metamorphosis. A seemingly docile archivist, a quiet woman by all outward appearances, transformed into a cold-blooded architect of destruction. This is not merely a tale of crime, it's a psychological excavation. It's the story of Lena Miller, a woman who tragically conflated love with confinement, who perceived her marriage as a form of servitude, and who, in her twisted logic, equated ultimate freedom with the demise of another. It's a narrative woven around a single, unassuming scratch-off lottery ticket, a mere piece of paper that promised liberation but delivered a different, darker kind of transformation. It changed everything, certainly, but not in any way imaginable by those involved, least of all by the woman who initiated its deadly ripple. Lena Miller believed she was trapped within the confines of her ordinary existence, a belief that was, in itself, a profound miscalculation. She then convinced herself that the act of extinguishing her husband's life would unchain her. In this, too, she was terribly, fatally wrong. But amidst her cascade of errors, one stark truth remained. That humble scratch-off ticket, that seemingly innocent harbinger of fortune, genuinely did alter the very fabric of her reality. The ultimate alter, certainly, but not in any way imaginable by those involved, least of all by the woman who initiated its deadly ripple. Lena Miller believed she was trapped within the confines of her ordinary existence, a belief that was, in itself, a profound miscalculation. She then convinced herself that the act of extinguishing her husband's life would unchain her. In this, too, she was terribly, fatally wrong. But amidst her cascade of errors, one stark truth remained. That humble scratch-off ticket, that seemingly innocent harbinger of fortune, genuinely did alter the very fabric of her reality. The profound question this story compels us to confront is not whether Lena Miller deserved the chilling fate that ultimately befell her. That is a judgment for others to make. Instead, the more unsettling, more introspective query is this: would any of us, when faced with such an overwhelming sense of suffocation, of invisibility, of the raw, gnawing desperation that consumed Lena, have chosen a path fundamentally different from hers? This is a story that will dismantle your preconceived notions about the sanctity of marriage, the corrupting influence of wealth, and the terrifying capacity for evil that lurks beneath the veneer of normalcy. It will force you to cast a suspicious glance at the person sleeping soundly beside you, prompting an unsettling reflection on whether they are truly the same individual you pledged your life to. And, as the chilling details unfold, you might find yourself checking the locks on your own doors twice, perhaps even thrice, before succumbing to the night. Because if this macabre tale could ensnare Lena Miller, a quiet archivist from Rosewood who wouldn't harm a fly, then it could, quite conceivably, befall anyone. If stories of such profound human darkness, of twisted desires and desperate acts resonate with the core of your being as they do with mine, then you are in the right place. You need to hit that subscribe button. We delve beyond the sensational headlines, plunge into the murky depths beyond the news reports, and relentlessly pursue the truth with a tenacity that few others dare to emulate. We dissect the chilling psychology underpinning these heinous acts, explore the fragmented humanity lurking behind the bold-faced headlines, and meticulously examine the choices that transform seemingly ordinary individuals into cold, calculating killers. And while you are here, before we plunge further into the harrowing abyss of Lena Miller's story, take a moment to explore the description below for our companion book, The Psychology of a Killer Spouse. Because after Lena's chilling narrative unfolds, you will undoubtedly crave a deeper understanding of how an ostensibly ordinary person can harbor such extraordinary evil, how someone who shares your most intimate space can meticulously plan your demise. But first, let me transport you back to that fateful morning, the morning when the trajectory of Lena Miller's life and that of her unsuspecting husband irrevocably shifted. To truly comprehend the catastrophic events that unfurled on that Tuesday morning in Rosewood, to grasp the insidious transformation that Lena Miller underwent, we must first understand the woman she was before the shadow of murder began to eclipse her soul. She was born Lena Marie Williams in 1982, nestled within a modest house on the south side of Rosewood, a district where the fabled American dream felt less like an attainable reality and more like a faded echo from a distant, unattainable past. Her father, a man hardened by relentless labor, toiled tirelessly in a factory that churned out automotive components, working double shifts to keep their meager household afloat. Her mother, with hands calloused by years of domestic labor, cleaned houses for families who resided in the sprawling, opulent neighborhoods that existed only in Lena's most fervent childhood dreams. Yet, even in those humble beginnings, Lena was distinct. She possessed an innate brilliance, a keen intellect that teachers couldn't help but recognize, a brilliance that prompted guidance counselors to pen glowing letters of recommendation, letters that metaphorically unlocked doors other children didn't even know existed. She devoured books with an insatiable hunger, her mind a sponge for knowledge, and would often lose herself in the quiet rebellion of writing poetry in the margins of her textbooks. Her dreams, though unspoken to many, were of a life vastly grander, infinitely more expansive than the circumscribed existence she had been born into. College, she believed, was her designated escape route. She enrolled in psychology at Rosewood State University, painstakingly funding her education through a combination of hard-won scholarships and grueling part-time jobs that left her perpetually exhausted, yet unwavering in her determination. "I'm going to be a therapist," she would declare to anyone who would listen, her voice imbued with a youthful idealism that would, over time, erode. It was within the hallowed halls of Rosewood State that she encountered David Hayes. He was 3 years her senior, a diligent business major whose steady gaze and unwavering hands exuded a quiet confidence, a palpable sense of safety that felt like a balm after a childhood spent witnessing the tumultuous financial anxieties that plagued her parents' marriage. David juggled shifts at a local warehouse during the day, attending classes under the cloak of night, his life meticulously structured around a 5-year plan. This plan, meticulously laid out in his mind, envisioned a future replete with marriage, children, and the quintessential symbol of suburban stability, a house adorned with a white picket fence. "I want to take care of you," he confessed to her on their third date, a statement delivered with an earnestness that Lena, in her youthful naivety, believed to be the most profoundly romantic sentiment anyone had ever uttered to her. In this, as in so many things, she was profoundly mistaken. Their courtship spanned 2 years, years that were, for the most part, good. David embodied everything Lena thought she desired in a partner. He was reliably consistent, unwaveringly faithful, and relentlessly hard-working. He possessed the thoughtful habit of never forgetting her birthday, the quiet strength of never raising his voice in anger, and the unwavering loyalty of never casting a glance at other women. In a world that had always felt precarious and uncertain to Lena, David represented an anchor of safety. When he knelt to propose, it was with a ring he had meticulously saved for over 8 months. It wasn't ostentatious or extravagant, but it was undeniably real. A modest diamond glinting against gold, a tangible promise that felt as solid and unyielding as the very ground upon which they stood. "I want to give you everything," he vowed, his voice earnest. "I want to build a life with you." Lena, swept up in the moment, said yes because she genuinely loved him. But she also said yes because she was weary of the relentless burden of self-reliance, exhausted by the perpetual demand to be strong, fatigued by the constant struggle to fight for every aspiration she held. Their wedding was a small, intimate affair, yet perfect in its simplicity. Lena gracefully wore her grandmother's dress, carefully altered to complement her slender frame. David, resplendent in a rented tuxedo, openly wept during their vows, a raw display of emotion that Lena found endearing. Their honeymoon took them to the tranquil mountains of Gatlinburg, where they found solace in a rustic cabin offering breathtaking vistas. They spoke of their future not as a fragile hope, but as an undeniable certainty. "We're going to have 3 children," David declared, his voice filled with paternal anticipation. "2 boys and a girl. The boys will play football and the girl will be smart, just like her mother." Lena, ever the pragmatist, interjected, "What if I want to finish school first?" David, with a dismissive wave of his hand, replied, "We'll figure it out, baby. We've got time." But time, as Lena would soon discover, is a peculiar, deceptive entity. It moves at an agonizingly different pace when you are suspended in the purgatory of waiting for your true life to begin. The initial years of their marriage were pleasant. They purchased a modest house in a respectable neighborhood, complete with a sprawling yard that would one day cradle the laughter of the children they envisioned, and a kitchen where Lena could indulge her burgeoning culinary interests, experimenting with recipes gleaned from glossy magazines. David, a diligent worker, secured a promotion at the warehouse, a testament to his unwavering dedication. Lena, too, found employment at the local public library, immersing herself in the quiet satisfaction of shelving books and guiding patrons to the knowledge they sought. It was a serene existence, a safe haven, a life that to any casual observer peering in from the outside appeared utterly perfect. But somewhere, in the silent, insidious space between the joyous pronouncements of their wedding vows and the fateful appearance of the lottery ticket, something began to wither and die. It wasn't their marriage precisely, it wasn't even their love in its purest form. It was something far more subtle, infinitely more dangerous. Lena's once vibrant dreams, brimming with possibility, slowly began to feel like extravagant luxuries she could no longer afford. Her meticulously crafted plans for personal growth gradually morphed into selfish indulgences. Her nascent ambitions, once a driving force, now felt like profound betrayals of the domestic tranquility she had promised to build with David. "Why do you need to go back to school?" David would inquire, his tone laced with a bewildered affection whenever Lena tentatively broached the subject of completing her psychology degree. "You're smart enough already." When she dared to suggest a vacation to some exotic, far-flung destination, he would counter, "Why do you want to travel? We have everything we need right here." And when she expressed a desire to apply for a more challenging, full-time position at the library, he would dismissively state, "Why do you want to work full-time? I earn enough money for both of us." These were, on the surface, reasonable questions. Loving questions, even. They emanated from a man who genuinely wished to provide for his wife, to shield her from the relentless anxieties and uncertainties of the outside world. Yet, insidiously, these ostensibly loving inquiries slowly, systematically, began to diminish Lena, to make her feel smaller, less significant. By their 10th anniversary, she had ceased to voice her dreams aloud. By their 12th, she had, chillingly, ceased to even harbor them. And by their 15th, she had almost entirely forgotten the vibrant, ambitious woman she had once been, subsumed by the identity of Mrs. David Hayes. At 38 years old, she felt a profound weariness, as if 80 years of life had been compressed into her relatively short existence. She was married to a good man, a man who undoubtedly loved her, and yet, paradoxically, she felt as though she were slowly, imperceptibly disappearing. It was against this backdrop of quiet desperation, of dreams slowly suffocating under the weight of mundane domesticity, that a catalyst emerged, a serpent slithering into Eden. That catalyst arrived in the form of Jordan Reed. Jordan had been Lena's roommate during their college years, a time when Lena was still unequivocally Lena, unfettered by the marital identity that now defined her, before she became merely somebody's wife. Jordan was everything Lena had consciously or unconsciously relinquished. She was fiercely independent, fearlessly adventurous, and unapologetically, refreshingly selfish. She had built a vibrant life for herself in Atlanta, forging a successful career in marketing, and cultivated relationships with men who, unlike David, found her intrinsically interesting. "You look tired," Jordan observed, her voice laced with genuine concern, during her first visit to Rosewood in years. They sat in Lena's living room, the late afternoon light filtering through the window, illuminating the carefully chosen furniture they had acquired together, the framed wedding photographs that now felt like relics, a life that felt less like their own happiness and more like a museum exhibit of someone else's. They sipped wine, the clinking of glasses punctuating the vast silence of 15 years of divergent lives. "I am tired," Lena admitted, her voice barely a whisper, a sigh escaping her lips. "Tired of what?" Jordan prompted, her gaze sweeping around the meticulously arranged room. Lena's hand, almost unconsciously, gestured at the confines of their shared existence. "All of it." That seemingly innocuous conversation, a simple exchange between two old friends, planted a seed. A tiny, insidious, poisonous seed that would, in time, blossom into something monstrous, something beyond Lena's darkest imaginings. But before the poisonous bloom was the lottery ticket. The lottery ticket materialized on a mundane Tuesday morning in May. It appeared as innocent as a whispered prayer, and yet, in its deceptive simplicity, it held the potential for unparalleled danger. David, ever the hopeful dreamer, had purchased it at the corner mart on his way home the previous night. $5, a paltry sum, for the tantalizing prospect of $10 million. He had indulged in the habit of buying scratch-offs for years, a small, recurring gamble against the odds of his everyday life. His winnings had never surpassed $20, a minor thrill quickly forgotten. But hope, after all, is a remarkably cheap drug, a potent elixir when you're toiling away in a warehouse, your mind conjuring visions of something better, something more. Jordan was silent for a long, contemplative moment, processing the weight of Lena's despair. "You know," she finally said, her voice softer, laced with a hint of something darker, "you could still leave, right? Take half the money and go wherever you want." Lena scoffed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Half the money isn't all the money." "What's that supposed to mean?" Jordan pressed. "It means I've given him 15 years of my life," Lena hissed, her voice rising with indignant fury. "I've given him my youth, my dreams, my ambition. I've given him everything. And now he wins the lottery, and I'm supposed to settle for half? I'm tired of settling. I'm tired of taking less than I deserve. I'm tired of being grateful for scraps when I should be eating the whole meal." "So, what are you going to do?" Jordan asked, her voice calm, almost too calm. Lena looked across the room at David, who was peacefully engrossed in an article about mutual funds and retirement planning, utterly content, completely oblivious to the fact that his wife was plotting her escape, not from their marriage, but from him. "I don't know yet," she said, her voice heavy with chilling resolve. "But I'll figure something out." That something would, chillingly, turn out to be murder. It began as a twisted joke, a dark, macabre jest that Jordan made during one of their extended phone conversations in early June. Lena had been lamenting her suffocating existence, her yearning to break free. You know, Jordan mused, her voice laced with an almost casual cruelty, if something happened to David, an accident, I mean, you'd inherit everything. All 10 million. No lawyers, no messy negotiations, no splitting assets. Just you and the money and the rest of your life. Lena's gasp was barely audible. Jordan, that's horrible. Jordan chuckled, a dry, unsettling sound. Is it? Or is it practical? Accidents happen every day, Lena. Car crashes, house fires, slip and falls. Rich widows are very common. The seed, once planted, began its insidious growth. Lena, initially horrified, found herself unable to dislodge the idea. She began to observe David with a new, unsettling awareness, noticing things she'd never consciously registered before. The way he drove just a little too fast on the interstate, the way he routinely neglected to check his brakes, the terrifying ease with which he trusted everyone and everything, including the wife who was now, with a burgeoning sense of detachment, wishing him dead. She began to research, not overtly, not obsessively, but through casual browsing during her lunch breaks at the library. Articles on successful murders, on insurance payouts for accidental deaths, on women who got away with killing their husbands. For 3 weeks in June, she immersed herself in the dark art of murder. She devoured information on various methods. Poison? Too traceable. Shooting? Too obvious. Drowning? Too suspicious. Car accidents? The most believable, if executed with precision. She studied alibis, evidence, and the common pitfalls that led to apprehension. She rationalized her macabre curiosity, telling herself she was merely exploring a dark fantasy, contemplating the abstract concept of freedom. But late at night, lying beside David, she found herself imagining what it would truly feel like to be alone. Not divorced alone, entangled with lawyers, alimony, and the agonizing process of dividing a life they had meticulously constructed together. No, something far more absolute. Widow alone. Rich widow alone. Free widow alone. The thought should have recoiled her, filled her with revulsion. Instead, with a horrifying clarity, it felt like the most natural, most liberating thing in the world. "You've been distant lately," David observed one evening, his voice tinged with concern. They were watching TV, and he was idly tracing patterns on her arm with his finger. "Everything okay?" "Just tired," Lena murmured, her voice flat. "Tired of what?" he pressed gently. "Work, life, the same routines every single day." He squeezed her hand. "That'll change soon, baby. Once we get the money situation figured out, once we get the new house, you won't have to work if you don't want to." "What if I don't want the new house?" she asked, the words surprising even herself. "What do you mean?" David paused the TV, turning to face her fully. "What if I want something different? What if I want to travel, see the world, have adventures?" David's expression shifted from concern to a subtle frustration. "We can do all that, Lena, but first we need to be responsible. We need to invest the money, buy the house, set ourselves up for the future." "Whose future?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Our future, mine and yours, together. What if I don't want to be together anymore?" The words, once spoken, hung in the air between them, dangerous and irreversible, shattering the fragile peace. "What are you saying?" David asked, his voice laced with bewildered pain. "Nothing," Lena lied, her voice hollow. "I'm not saying anything. I'm just tired." "Lena, if you're unhappy," he began. But she cut him off, a desperate denial. "I'm not unhappy. I'm just tired." But she was lying. She was desperately, profoundly unhappy. And she was beginning to believe there was only one permanent solution to her predicament. The chilling plan coalesced in late June, a perfect storm born of desperation. a perverse opportunity, and a friendship that had curdled into something dangerously toxic. Jordan's distant cousin knew a guy. That guy, in turn, knew a mechanic. And the mechanic, a man named Marcus Thorne, was in dire need of money, utterly unconcerned with the moral compass of its acquisition. It took Jordan 2 agonizing weeks to establish the connection and arrange the clandestine meeting. Marcus Thorne, 34 years old, twice divorced, and perpetually shrouded in the greasy grime of Thorne's auto and repair on the east side of Rosewood. He had a rap sheet: petty theft, drug possession, assault, and a notorious reputation for his willingness to bend or outright break the rules, provided the price was sufficiently enticing. They met him in a dimly lit, smoky dive bar on a Thursday night in late June. The blaring music provided a convenient shroud for their whispered conversation. The low lighting ensured their faces remained obscured. And in that anonymous den of local drifters, no one paid the slightest attention to a discussion that didn't involve them. "What about the brake lines?" Lena asked, her voice surprisingly steady, considering the monstrous implications of her words. "You cut them partway through. Not completely. That would be too obvious. Just enough so they'll fail when he's driving fast. It'll look like mechanical failure. Happens all the time." "How much?" Jordan interjected, her voice brisk, businesslike. "5,000, Marcus Thorne stated, his eyes unblinking. "Done." They sealed the monstrous pact with a handshake across the sticky, beer-stained table, and in that chilling moment, Lena realized, with a sickening lurch in her stomach, that she had just hired someone to kill her husband. The plan was chillingly simple, its simplicity designed to mimic the randomness of fate. Lena would persuade David to take his car in for a routine inspection. Thorne's Auto and Repair would be the chosen shop. Marcus Thorne would perform the work. It would appear to be an accident, a tragic, unavoidable accident. "What if he survives?" Lena asked, a tremor in her voice. Marcus Thorne's response was cold, devoid of empathy. "He won't. Not if you do it right." "What does that mean?" she pressed, her heart hammering against her ribs. "It means you make sure he's on the interstate when it happens, going fast. Interstate 75 if you can manage it. That stretch between downtown and the airport. Lots of curves, lots of traffic. Even if he survives the crash, he won't survive what comes after." Lena felt a wave of nausea wash over her, a sickening sensation that twisted her gut. But it wasn't revulsion. It was something far more disturbing. It was excitement. For the first time in years, a terrifying, exhilarating sense of control surged through her veins. She was finally, truly, in charge of her own life. The first 2 weeks of July were the longest of Lena's existence. She forced herself to maintain a facade of normalcy, to pretend that everything was perfectly fine. She kissed David goodbye every morning, her lips brushing his cheek, knowing with a chilling certainty that soon, very soon, she would be free. The strangest part was the unsettling ease with which she adopted this new role. She became, in those fleeting weeks, a better wife than she had been in years. She cooked David's favorite meals, her hands meticulously preparing dishes she hadn't bothered with in ages. She laughed at his mundane jokes, the sound hollow in her own ears. She even cuddled with him on the couch while they watched television, her body pressed against him, feigning intimacy. Perhaps it was the knowledge of its temporary nature that made it so effortless, the countdown to her perceived liberation acting as a macabre aphrodisiac. "You seem different lately," David remarked one warm Thursday night in mid-July, his voice soft, contemplative. They were lying in bed, the dim glow of the bedside lamp casting long shadows, and he was absently tracing patterns on her arm with his finger. "Happy, like you're excited about something." "Maybe I am," Lena murmured, a subtle smile playing on her lips. "What are you excited about?" David asked, his voice genuinely curious. Lena's mind raced, conjuring vivid images of the millions she would soon inherit, of the luxurious house in Hawaii she envisioned, of the life she would construct once he was gone. "The future," she said simply, the word a carefully constructed lie. "Me too," he whispered, pressing a soft kiss to her hair. Monday morning, July 17th, 2024. Lena rose early, the pre-dawn stillness amplifying the frantic beat of her own heart. She meticulously prepared David's favorite breakfast: eggs over easy, crispy bacon, toast slathered with strawberry jam. She watched him eat, her gaze almost predatory, committing every mundane detail to memory. The way he chewed, the way he held his fork, the gentle curve of his smile when he caught her staring. "What?" he asked, his mouth full. "Nothing," she replied, a faint smile on her lips. "I just love you." "I love you too," he responded, his voice muffled by food. The words, to Lena, felt like shards of glass in her throat, sharp and suffocating. "Babe," she said, her voice carefully modulated, as he prepared to leave for work. "Your brakes have been squeaking. Maybe you should get them checked." David, ever agreeable, nodded. "Yeah, I've been meaning to do that. I'll stop by Thorne's on my way to work." Thorne's, where Marcus Thorne was patiently waiting. "Drive safe," she said, her voice a perfect imitation of a loving wife, as she kissed him goodbye. "Always do," he replied, giving her a quick peck on the cheek before turning and walking out the door. She watched him get into his car, the engine purring to life, and back out of the driveway. She remained rooted to the spot, waving, a silent farewell, until his car disappeared around the corner. Then, with trembling hands, she went back inside and, with agonizing slowness, transferred $4,000 to Marcus Thorne's account. Her hands shook so violently she could barely type the numbers, a visceral tremor betraying the terrifying calm she projected. The call came at precisely 2:47 p.m. on July 17, 2024. "Mrs. Miller, this is Officer Jones with the Rosewood Police Department. There's been an accident." Lena's legs buckled beneath her. She sank to the kitchen floor, the cold tile a stark contrast to the burning dread in her stomach. "Is he—" she choked out, the word barely a whisper. "He's alive, ma'am, but he's in critical condition. Multiple trauma, possible brain injury. You need to get to Rosewood Community Hospital as soon as possible." Lena hung up, her fingers numb, and immediately dialed Jordan. "It's done," she whispered, her voice raw with a mixture of terror and a perverse triumph. "How bad?" Jordan asked, her voice betraying a hint of excitement. "Bad. They said critical condition, but he's still alive, for now." "Okay," Jordan said, her voice firm, resolute. "This is good. This is what we expected. Now you need to get to the hospital and play the part of your life." Lena drove to the hospital in a daze, the empty car a silent echo chamber for her rehearsed lines. "Is he going to be okay? I don't understand what happened. He was fine when he left this morning. We were supposed to grow old together." When she arrived, David was already in surgery. The doctor's pronouncement was grim. "It's touch and go. The next few hours will be critical." Lena sat in the sterile waiting room, tears streaming down her face, not from sadness, but from a profound terror. Terrified that he would die and she would be free, forever haunted by the blood on her hands. Terrified that he would live and she would be trapped, inextricably bound to the life she had tried to escape, a living reminder of her monstrous act. At precisely 11:32 p.m., a doctor emerged, his face etched with exhaustion, and informed her that David was stable but still unconscious. He had sustained severe head trauma, internal bleeding, and multiple fractures. If he survived, there was a significant chance he would suffer permanent brain damage. "I'm sorry," the doctor said, his voice laced with empathy. "I know this isn't what you wanted to hear." But it was, Lena realized with a chilling certainty, precisely what she had wanted to hear. For 3 days, she maintained her vigil by his bedside, holding his hand, whispering carefully chosen words of love and encouragement. She brought vibrant flowers, played his favorite jazz music softly on a small portable speaker, meticulously embodying the role of the devoted wife everyone expected her to be. On the fourth day, at 3:17 in the morning, the machines began to scream. David's heart had stopped. For 2 minutes and 37 seconds, David Hayes was dead. Lena watched the nurses swarm around him, their movements a frantic ballet of resuscitation, pumping his chest, injecting him with powerful drugs, shouting out instructions in voices that sounded like desperate prayers. And in those 2 minutes and 37 seconds, Lena felt something she had never anticipated feeling. Peace. A profound, terrifying, blissful peace. Then, abruptly, the machines beeped again. The flatline became a steady, rhythmic cadence. The nurses stepped back, exhausted but triumphant. "We got him back," one of them declared, her voice hoarse. Lena smiled, a carefully constructed mask of relief, and uttered all the right things, but inside she was screaming. 3 days later, David woke up. "Hey, baby," he rasped, his voice weak from the breathing tube. "Hey, I had the strangest dreams about us, about the life we're going to have." Lena squeezed his hand, her smile a cruel lie. "Tell me about them." "We were old and gray and still in love," he whispered, his eyes distant, clouded by memory. "We were everything I always wanted us to be." "That sounds beautiful," Lena murmured. It was. And you know what the best part was? What? We had forever. Forever. There was that word again, a haunting echo of her deepest fears. A word that now felt like a crushing weight, a life sentence she had unwittingly escaped, only to have it reinstated. The insistent, authoritative knock came at precisely 7:23 a.m. on a Thursday morning in September. It wasn't the gentle rap of a neighbor borrowing sugar, nor the familiar tap of a delivery driver. This was the firm, unyielding knock of individuals who do not entertain no for an answer. 6 months had passed since David's accident. 3 grueling months of Lena meticulously performing the role of the devoted wife, tending to her recovering husband, feigning gratitude for his miraculous survival. Lena knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, who stood on her doorstep before she even reached for the doorknob. She had been anticipating them for weeks, ever since Jordan had ceased answering her frantic phone calls. Ever since the news had reported in a fleeting blurb that Marcus Thorne had been found dead in his motel room. Ever since the nightmares had begun, vivid, horrifying tableaus of handcuffs, cold prison cells, and the terrifying prospect of spending the remainder of her life behind bars. But knowing something is coming, no matter how certain, does not, in any measure, cushion the devastating blow when it finally arrives. "Mrs. Miller," the woman at the door greeted, her voice calm, professional. She was middle-aged, with kind eyes that belied the sternness of her gaze, and a firm, unwavering handshake. "I'm Detective Anya Williams. We have a warrant to search your home." "A warrant for what?" Lena managed to ask, her voice a hollow whisper, barely audible even to her own ears. "In connection with the attempted murder of your husband." The words struck Lena like a physical blow. She felt her knees buckle, her vision blurring at the edges, her carefully constructed world beginning to shatter into irreparable fragments. "I don't understand," she stammered, a desperate, futile attempt at denial. "May we come in?" Detective Williams inquired, her voice gentle but firm. Lena instinctively stepped aside, watching numbly as they flooded into her house, a relentless tide through a broken dam. They moved with a chilling purpose, an efficient, choreographed chaos born of years of practice. They knew, with unsettling precision, exactly what they were searching for. David appeared in the hallway, still in his pajamas, his hair disheveled, standing like a ghost from a nightmare. The jagged scar on his forehead, a stark, visceral reminder of his brush with death, was painfully visible in the harsh morning light. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice thick with sleep and confusion. "They have a warrant," Lena said, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. "They think someone tried to kill you." "Kill me?" David repeated, his brow furrowed in utter bewilderment. "But it was an accident. My brakes failed." "Sir," Detective Williams interjected gently, her gaze unwavering as she looked at David, then, subtly, pointedly, at Lena. "Your brakes didn't fail. They were cut." The color drained from David's face. He turned his gaze to Lena, an expression she had never witnessed before contorting his features. Not anger, not hurt, but something far deeper, far more devastating. Something that looked, chillingly, like recognition. "Cut?" he repeated, the single word a question, an accusation. "Yes, sir. Someone deliberately tampered with your vehicle." "Who would do that?" David whispered, his eyes still fixed on Lena. Detective Williams offered no answer. She didn't need to. The answer stood before them, in the hallway, wearing a bathrobe, attempting, futilely, to project an air of innocence. They found everything. The laptop, its browser history, a damning chronicle of insidious searches for how to kill someone and make it look like an accident. The small, worn black notebook tucked away in a drawer where Lena had meticulously detailed various methods, listing their pros and cons with chilling detachment. The undeniable bank records meticulously tracing the transfer of funds to Marcus Thorne. The evidence was overwhelming, irrefutable, painting a picture of premeditated, cold-blooded intent. The sentencing hearing was held on a brutally cold Tuesday morning in December. Lena sat rigidly in her orange jumpsuit, her hands shackled behind her back, listening numbly as the judge articulated her crimes in stark, clinical legal terms. "Mrs. Miller, you have been convicted of attempting to murder your husband for financial gain. This court finds your actions to be particularly heinous because they involved a betrayal of the most sacred trust, the trust between husband and wife. The evidence unequivocally shows that this was not a crime of passion nor a moment of fleeting poor judgment. This was a calculated, premeditated attempt to murder your husband for money. The planning involved multiple individuals, multiple clandestine meetings, and multiple opportunities for you to reconsider your abhorrent intentions. You chose not to change your mind. Therefore, this court sentences you to 25 years in the Georgia Department of Corrections with the possibility of parole after serving 20 years. 25 years. Lena would be 63 years old when she was finally eligible for release, if she lived that long, if she secured parole, if she survived the harsh, unforgiving realities of prison life. But perhaps the most disturbing, the most unsettling aspect of this entire sordid narrative isn't the fate that befell Lena Miller or the lasting scars etched upon David Hayes. It's what transpired, or rather, what didn't transpire, concerning Jordan Reed. Jordan, the insidious whisperer who planted the poisonous seed of murder in Lena's vulnerable mind, who meticulously found the corrupt mechanic, who meticulously helped orchestrate the entire deadly scheme, and who ultimately, with her own hands, murdered Marcus Thorne. Jordan simply vanished. After testifying against her former best friend, a strategic move that secured her a coveted immunity deal from federal prosecutors, she disappeared into the anonymity of the Federal Witness Protection Program, evaporating like smoke into the vast expanse of the wind. The last confirmed sighting of Jordan Reed was at a Greyhound bus station in Charlotte, North Carolina, precisely 3 days after Lena's sentencing. Security footage, grainy but definitive, shows her boarding a bus destined for the West, carrying nothing more than a single duffel bag, her face obscured by oversized sunglasses despite the overcast sky. After that, nothing. A complete, unnerving void.
Some investigators, weary and cynical, believe Jordan couldn't bear the crushing weight of her monstrous deeds. They speculate she ended her own life somewhere in the desolate stretches of desert between North Carolina and nowhere, becoming merely another nameless missing person whose scattered bones might, decades from now, be stumbled upon by unsuspecting hikers. The guilt, they contend, finally caught up with her.
Others, however, are not so convinced. They believe, with a chilling certainty, that Jordan Reed is very much alive and thriving, living a new life under a new name, perhaps sipping margaritas on some secluded Caribbean island retreat, her lips curled in a secret smile as she reflects on how effortlessly she manipulated everyone: Lena, Marcus Thorne, even the federal prosecutors who, in their self-proclaimed cleverness, granted her immunity. The woman who whispered poison into Lena's desperate ear, who casually suggested accidents happen every day, who meticulously molded a desperate housewife into a cold-blooded killer. She faced no consequences, no agonizing prison time, no semblance of justice, no ultimate reckoning. While Lena serves 25 long years behind unforgiving bars, and David lives with the permanent, painful reminders of his wife's betrayal, Jordan Reed remains free, untroubled, unpunished. And that, perhaps, is the most profoundly chilling part of this entire disturbing story. Sometimes, the person who sows the seeds of evil, the true architect of destruction, is granted the perverse privilege of walking away, while others, often the manipulated, pay the ultimate price for the bitter harvest. Evil, it seems, doesn't always receive the retribution it so richly deserves. If this story has gripped your soul, if it has burrowed its way into the deepest recesses of your mind as it has mine, if it has forced you to question everything you thought you understood about love, about the sanctity of marriage, and about the chilling capacity for murder that lurks beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives, then you need to do 3 crucial things right now. First, hit that subscribe button for True Crime Files 247. We don't just recount what happened. We dig deeper than the sensational headlines, delve into the darker, more unsettling truths beyond the superficial news reports, and relentlessly pursue the raw, unfiltered truth with an unwavering commitment that no one else dares to match. We meticulously explore the intricate psychology behind the crime, the fragmented humanity lurking beneath the bold-faced headlines, and the agonizing, often subtle choices that transform seemingly ordinary individuals into cold, calculating killers. Second, check the description below for our companion book, The Psychology of a Killer Spouse, because after Lena's harrowing story, you will undoubtedly crave a profound understanding of how someone can share your bed for 15 years, share your most intimate moments, and yet still be capable of meticulously planning your demise. You will want to recognize the subtle warning signs, the insidious red flags, the chilling moments when love, once pure, curdles into something far darker, something truly sinister. Third, and this is perhaps the most important action you can take, share this story. Share it with someone who desperately needs to hear it, perhaps someone who is currently feeling trapped in the suffocating confines of their own life. Maybe someone who is ensnared in a relationship that is slowly, insidiously suffocating them, draining their spirit. Or, chillingly, someone who, in their profound desperation, believes that murder is the only viable escape route. Because here is the unvarnished truth. We are all capable of terrible, unspeakable things when we feel desperate enough. The fundamental difference between Lena Miller and the rest of us isn't that she felt trapped. It's that she, in her ultimate desperation, chose murder as her brutal, irreversible escape route. Drop a comment below and tell us, would you have made the same choice? Could you have found the capacity to forgive David if you were in Lena's shoes, facing such a profound betrayal? What would you have done differently given the same agonizing circumstances? And remember this, always. Choose communication over corrosive silence. Choose honesty over insidious deception. Choose love over paralyzing fear. Choose to be truly free without making someone else pay the ultimate, irreversible price for your liberation. Because once you cross that unforgivable line, once you hire someone to sever the very lifeblood of a vehicle, once you choose murder over the sanctity of marriage, you can never, ever unchoose it. And the mundane, innocent sound of a penny scraping silver against a lottery ticket will never, ever sound the same again. This has been Alex River with True Crime. Until next time, stay safe.